Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Now for those of you who have been with me since day one, you will know that I was diagnosed in September of 2020 with BPD and that I started my recovery process and journey in March 2021 when I did the DBT 6-month program, which afterward I continued with individual therapy, took a break for about 2 months, and now I have been back doing individual therapy since June of this year. So it has been quite a ride so far. It's been almost 2 years since I started doing therapy consistently, and since I got my diagnosis, it has been 2 years now. And so I thought that I would share an update about where I'm at with things, what the recovery process has looked like for me. I want to talk about it honestly because I think that it's important, because sometimes by just watching my videos, you might assume it's the same thing as social media. You might assume that I'm actually thriving and that I'm doing well all the time because I'm happy on here. That's not the truth. And I'm still a human being at the end of the day. I'm still struggling with a lot of different things. And so I wanted to give you all an honest look and insight into my life and how things have really been. It's probably really easy for you to compare yourself to me. And I don't want you to do that because this recovery has been the most difficult thing I have had to do in my entire life. I basically have had to do a 180, completely change the way that I dealt with things in my life, the way that I was, the way that I perceive the world. This is ongoing. This is something that I am continuing to work on to do. And it has been a real struggle for a lot of it. There's a lot of days still where things happen that trigger me, and the only thing that I want to do is lay in bed and do nothing and just kind of wallow in my sadness. For those of you watching too, you also need to recognize that where I was, because BPD is a spectrum, right? And so where I landed on this BPD spectrum is probably not that extreme as maybe some of you are experiencing the symptoms. And so I had an advantage in that sense that I had less things to work on than maybe some of you. And so if you're feeling discouraged and you're looking at me and thinking, well, she only did one program and then therapy and she's thriving, it's not true. And we're also starting at different places. So never compare yourself to me. Don't compare yourself to anyone else who does have BPD. Your journey is your journey. It's unique to you. The way that you go about it, the way that you heal and change will vary. It has for me a lot, and this has not been a straight linear progress. This has been a spiral where I fall down and I make mistakes and I have these moments of relapsing, that I call them, into old patterns, and then I get better and I work on those things and those get better, and then something else happens that triggers some other pattern that I thought I had worked on. I fall back in the hole and I have to build myself up over and over and over again. And this is what recovery has looked like for me. There's been a lot of mistakes made on my end. There's been a lot of feelings of guilt and shame, feeling depressed, unmotivated, not wanting to do anything, wanting to isolate myself, a lot of crying, a lot of feeling misunderstood. Although a lot of those things are better, those things are still there. There's just not to the same degree that when I started DBT for the first time in March of 2021. But it's been a challenge, and it's still a challenge. I think that also, given that I received my diagnosis while I was in a relationship, it made it that much harder because there was this time cooker of feeling that I was putting on myself, like feeling like I needed to change and evolve at a speed that maybe wasn't realistic for my capacities, because I wanted the relationship to work so much. And I mean, we're still together now and we're engaged, so it's working. But that's not to say that it's not a work in progress, and I still need to work on some of those things, but it was very challenging to try to work on my abandonment issues while also being with someone, and work on developing my wise mind, like we know from DBT, because I was so used to living in either emotion mind at 100% or logic and rational mind the other 100% of the time, that I was really self-critical and really hard on myself, but also unable to see things for what they were and recognize facts in things. And so I definitely feel like the rate to which I pushed myself to change was too quick. And I think that if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't put as much pressure on myself, and I would come at it from a more wholesome perspective. I think that at first, of course, I was doing it for myself. There was also a part of me, though, that was doing the recovery process in a desperate attempt to keep my relationship and for it to stay, which was wrong ultimately, because it impaired my capacity to grow, because I had so much pressure on myself that I would end up just crashing and burning and relapsing in these serious things that I was doing to self-sabotage myself in the relationship, because there was so much pressure to succeed and to be this thing that I wasn't yet, that at some point I just got tired, and I would have these fuck it moments where I would just do things to kind of prove to myself, okay, well, you're not ready yet. You're not there yet. You haven't changed that much. This is still a thing. And so even now, I have moments of those times where I feel like there's maybe things that are unaddressed in my life that I haven't taken the time to look at, and those things will still pop up from out of the blue, where I need to then reconcile with myself the fact that I'm still struggling with those things, even being almost 2 years into my recovery process. That was a long-winded ramble to say essentially that I am struggling still, and there are days that are really hard, and there are moments where I feel like giving up, and I feel like just quitting, and I feel like quitting on myself and just saying, well, none of this is worth it. And I think that I have gained enough wisdom to know not to do those things, and so I don't do those things. I keep doing what's good for me even when I don't want to. That's not to say, though, that there aren't days where I just don't want to do anything, and I don't care about my well-being, and I don't care about the impact that it has on myself or others, and sometimes I do give in and I act on those urges, and that's okay. It has also taught me that forgiveness is really important, self-forgiveness, self-compassion. I will say that one of the things that has changed for me just recently, I would say that I had one of those moments of relapsing into patterns and behaviors that are unhealthy and toxic for myself. And the difference with my way of dealing with that was that I understood why those things happen. I recognized that they were wrong. But also, weirdly enough, I didn't feel bad about myself, which is a huge change. Whereas before, I think I would have spiraled and beat myself up and would have fallen into a depression for like a week or two, and those feelings would have subsided gradually. Weirdly, though, with this, it was right from the start. I had awareness, I understood, I recognized the flaws and where I was wrong. I also had extreme amounts of self-compassion for myself for doing that. And I can say that recovering from that incident was much easier than in the past because I didn't have the added burden of being so critical with myself. I could just deal with the consequences of that thing rather than then on top of that having to deal with the consequences of my own internal chaos relating to that. And so I am still working through a lot of things. I still have fear of abandonment. I still have urges to get attention from men who are toxic for me. Whether that looks like just, and it's not necessarily that I act on those things, it's just that it's like when you go to the grocery store and you see someone who's attractive and you want to talk to them. For me, sometimes it goes the extra mile of wanting to talk to them, but then when I go and I leave the grocery store, then I'll start obsessing about that person. And so I've had to recognize that in myself, that that's an ongoing pattern that I want to address, really, because it's obviously problematic for me. But that's to say that I still have these things. I still have real life things going on within me that I am working on, and that this whole thing has been messy and really difficult at times. And so I don't want people to get false ideas from what recovery looks like. I know that I obviously think that recovery is possible, okay? I also think that we are at a disadvantage from other people, and you might, to some degree, always be slightly disadvantaged to others who don't have BPD. And it's about seeing that for what that is and accepting it. That makes everything else easier and smoother along the way. But I also don't want to paint this false picture of recovery has been the easiest thing in my life and it's been rainbows and butterflies, and now that it's been 2 years, I'm all good in the hood and life is beautiful. Yes, life is beautiful, and yes, I have changed and I have grown, and I am very proud of myself for all those things, and there's so much benefits that have derived from that. And it's also been the most challenging, difficult, painful, suffering-inducing experience of my life that is ongoing because I'm still healing and recovering from some of those things. And so I'm just trying to be honest with you all, I think, is what I'm trying to get at. I see a lot of information online. There's a lot of accounts and stuff out there who promote recovery as being this beautiful and magical journey that everyone can recover without help from a therapist, and that they can do that within a year and be symptom free. I don't mean to shit on those parades, but it's also, in my opinion, that that's not necessarily realistic, and that you're actually going to harm yourself by having those expectations and belief. So the point of this video essentially was to give you a look and insight into my life, the fact that I'm still struggling, the fact that I'm still in my own recovery process, that this is really difficult and at times pain-inducing, that it's also worth it, right, to get that life worth living. But it's not to say that you're not going to work hard and that this will be easy and pain-free and magical and wonderful along the way. There are going to be a lot of difficult moments for you, and it might take some time, and that's okay. And even if I still feel depressed and I still have a hard time regulating my emotions at times, and I still engage in behaviors that are self-sabotaging, and that I still have a fear of abandonment, that is not to say that I have not changed significantly and in a way that has drastically improved my life. That is also to say that I still struggle with those things, being almost 2 years into recovery. And so that if it takes time for you, you are okay, you're not broken, there's nothing wrong with you. When you think about it, if this has been your hardwiring for your entire life, it's okay that it takes a bit of time. It's okay that it takes a few years, and every single person is different. And please, 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 please do not compare yourself to me. If you lived and followed my day, and if I had a camera from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every single day, you would actually see the full range of my mood and how it changes and the difficulties that I encounter. Thank you for listening to my ramble today about my BPD recovery journey and kind of where that's been at so far. If you liked this video. If you like more informal videos where I just get you caught up on my life, leave me a comment down below so that I know to make more of these. On that note, thank you so much again for sharing this space and this time with me today. I wish you all an amazing week, and I will see you next time for another episode of On the Line.